Alright guys, so scanners. So I brought two of my scanners with me today, and these are the ones I use at my shop, and I have a few different ones, but these are kind of my go-to scanners, the ones that we use most often. So what I brought along was a Snap-on and a Launch. And I'm going to show you guys the differences. This Snap-on is a Verdict, it's a Snap-on Verdict, and this one's actually wireless. There's no cords attached, you have this little wireless module here. So this part actually has a cord, but plugs into the OBD2 port. You can rest this up on the dash, and now you kind of have cord-free operation with this, and you can watch it in the vehicle, obviously, you know, move it around, and then you can get out of the vehicle, and that's what's really nice. You can get out of the vehicle, walk around, pop the hood, and you can be watching data as you're under the hood, given the visual inspection. And I just really like the cordless operation. So anyways, so that is a Snap-on Verdict. And again, there's the one thing about Snap-on is that they have a few different models. They have a Verus, which is a little bit smaller, cheaper option than this. They have this or something similar to it, and then they have I believe it's the Verus. It's a little bit larger screen. And the one kind of cool part is, as far as I understand, they all have the same software package. So they have the same guts inside, or the same software, but it's just the actual different application and the screen size, and then whether it's cordless or corded, they all work the same. I think there's a lot of corded options and not a whole lot of cordless options with Snap-on. So there's that one. Now the other one we have here is this Launch. And the Snap-on is by far a more common scanner than the Launch, but this Launch is really pretty good bang for the buck as well. I've been pretty impressed with this thing. So this Launch, it is really, you can see I have all the different manufacturers in here. Both of them I have both domestic and European software on the system. But this Launch I found is really stronger, or works really well for European vehicles. This Launch is also wireless, and it has this tiny little port right here. It's all Bluetooth that you plug into the OBD2 port, and guess what? This is really easy to leave in vehicles, but when you go to exit the vehicle, it sounds an alarm to remind you to pull this back out of the vehicle. So anyways, again, really nice that it's wireless, and you can do all the same functions, pretty much all the same functions as you can with the Snap-on. I have found differences. Some stuff the Snap-on will do that this won't do. Some stuff the Launch will do that the Snap-on won't do. So both of them are. This Launch has really long battery life, I've noticed. I mean, we can charge this thing once a week, and depending on how much we use it, which is pretty crazy. The Snap-on has a little bit shorter battery life, usually about 3 or 4 hours when you're using it. So anyway guys, now we are going to plug these things into the vehicle, and I'm going to show you how to make them do the hard work for you. Okay, so we're going to start off here with our Snap-on scanner. I have the vehicle outside running, and really nice because this is wireless. I'm already plugged into the OBD2 port with the wireless module of the scanner. And so you can see all the different icons and tabs here. This is the one you're going to use the most to get started. This is going to be the one if you have a vehicle already loaded in the scanner, you can go back to it. The rest of these you really won't use too much. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and click on scanner here. Basically start a brand new vehicle. So we have go ahead and click Chevy. This is a year or model 2000. Y, remember guys, 10th digit of your VIN is always the year, and 8th is the engine. Okay, so manually, if you want to manually enter the VIN, but whenever there's automatic, I like to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click Automatic ID, and it's going to attempt to load the vehicle. Okay, do you want to load 2000? Comes up with the VIN and everything, so we're going to hit OK. 4-speed auto or 5-speed manual. So we're going to hit 4-speed auto. Okay, now you can see the different modules it offers for this vehicle. Engine, transmission, anti-lock brakes, airbag, body control, the heating, ventilation, the HVAC system, instrument panel, and finally the transfer case. So most of the time when you're diagnosing this stuff, you're going to be in the engine. So we're just going to start off by going into the engine or ECM here. Okay, California or federal emissions. We definitely have federal emissions. California is obviously if you have a vehicle that's built in California to meet their EPA regulations. Okay, so first of all, we have codes menu, data display, functional test, generic functions, troubleshooter. So let's start off by checking codes. So we're going to go ahead and hit codes menu. Okay, and you can see the different options here. Display codes, clear codes, freeze frame, failure records, which are kind of nice sometimes, and DTC status. So we're going to hit display codes. Hey, there we go. Okay. So it gives us an option to see all powertrain codes, which is going to be the engine, the transmission, history codes, failed this ignition. So that's just like it said, history is going to be something that's failed previously. And then failed this ignition is if it failed just on this ignition cycle or drive cycle. The rest of this stuff. So we're going to hit all powertrain codes. That's what you want to do. Okay, you can see we have a lot of codes here. So we have O2 codes. Oops, I'm going to try to scroll just by sliding the screen here. Okay, so we have O2 heater circuit bank 1, sensor 1, 2 codes for that. Also bank 2, sensor 1, O2 heater circuit bank 2, sensor 2, PO300 engine misfire, and EGR sensor A signal short low. Interesting. Okay, so what I like to do, I'm going to show you how to clear these codes. What I like to do sometimes, you can either write them down when you're diagnosing a vehicle, or I even just take out my phone and quick snap a picture of the codes. So we're going to go back. Okay, so now we're going to go to clear codes and key on, engine off. So I want us to shut off the engine with the key on, engine turned off. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, codes have been cleared. Now let's see, that time I didn't really turn the engine off, but let's just see what codes have cleared and what codes came back. Okay, just the EGR sensor code came back. So we call that a hard code. We call that a hard code because it did not clear. It instantly came back. So EGR again stands for exhaust gas recirculation. Okay, so that's how you look at codes. If you wanted to back up one more here. Okay, if you wanted to see your freeze frame failure records, so we'll click on that. Now you can it's going to give you the list of codes. Okay, then you're going to click on this little box right here. Looks kind of like a film, I guess. Film screen. Okay, now it said, since this is the only code we can look up right now because I cleared them, is the EGR code. It basically says mileage since first failure, 0, because we didn't drive it. It came back instantly. You can see our coolant temp was at 123 degrees. You can watch our fuel trims. You can watch our engine RPM was at 600. So you can see all the different data. Whenever that code's stored, it snaps a picture of the data. Not all vehicles have it, but some do. So that's kind of helpful. Oops. Okay, I'm going to hit back, top left of the screen here, top left corner. Okay, so that's how you look up codes and clear codes on this scanner. We're going to go back one more time, and we're going to go check out data display. Okay, so this is, again, we're in the engine control module here. So engine data, misfire data, EVAP/EGR data, fuel trim data, accessories, electrical theft data. So we're going to go to engine data. I'm going to show you kind of what we want to see here. All the different things we can look at. So you can see our engine RPM. We can see our coolant temp is 194 degrees Fahrenheit. Our mass airflow sensor is sitting at about almost 6 grams per second, which looks good. Throttle position, the map voltage, 1.22 volts. Okay, and here's what's cool. Here's our O2 sensors. So this stands for HO2S. Whoops. HO2S stands for heated O2 sensor bank 2, sensor 1. And heated O2 sensor bank 2, sensor 2. Okay, and then if we go to this side, we're also going to scroll up and see we have our O2 sensor. We have more O2 sensors over here. Heated O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 2. And here's our heated O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 1. So now let me show you something really cool. If we want to graph these sensors to really see what they are doing, I'm just going to click this in the top left hand corner here. Okay, right here. Click that. And I want to see all the sensors, so I'm going to scroll down. Okay, there's that. So because it says bank 2 sensor 2, that's my downstream. Now bank 2 sensor 1 is my upstream. I'm already looking at these two screens and I already know we have a bad catalytic converter because the downstream or sensor 2 should be a smooth, should be a smooth line. Okay, so these O2 sensors don't look great. Looking at our upstream, which is going to be bank 2 sensor 1, and let's see, bank 1 sensor 1. So down here is our upstream sensors. They should cycle just like this, just like they are. And if you look, it gives us, if you can see in the corner of the screen here, it says minimum 130, maximum 816, and that is reading in MV or millivolts. Okay, so that's what a good O2 sensor looks like right there. Now looking at the downstreams, which are going to be on top, this one is cycling. I mean, this one looks like it's reading correctly. However, it looks like the catalytic converter might be weak, because typically we would want to see just about almost a straight across line. This one over here is a little bit lower than this. Is almost looks like a lazy O2 sensor to me. It's not picking it up great. Okay, so that's some cool, that's called graphing data. So I'm going to back up out of here now. Then I'm going to look up fuel trims. Here's our short-term fuel trim bank 2 and our long-term fuel trim bank 2. So bank 2, our fuel trims, they look pretty good. You want to be, I would say, negative to positive 5% there. So we're going to hop over to this side. Look at our fuel trims over here. Okay, they also look pretty good. Not bad, considering that 102 sensor we thought might be a little bit lazy. I'm not going to worry about it too much because our fuel trims look good. If we had a fuel trim that was way off, then I might be a little bit more concerned about that O2 sensor. So we're going to go down the list here a little bit, just showing you guys what the kind of data we can see here. Vehicle speed, so you can drive it and watch your vehicle speed. Make sure it matches what's on the speedo. Okay. Okay, so there's what we have for data. For engine data, I'm going to go to exit here on the top left corner. Misfire data, if you have a truck with a misfire, extremely helpful. Pull that up for you here. Okay, so this you can see is our misfire current counter and our misfire current counter over here, and then we have down below it misfire history counter. So if we have an engine that's misfiring, it's going to show up right here, and that is extremely helpful for diagnosing a misfire. Look at it and say, oh, we have misfire 4 has misfired, or I'm sorry, cylinder 4 looks like it's misfired 85 times according to the history. So then we know which cylinder to address. Okay, I'm going to back up here. evap EGR data. We'll check that out. Okay, you can see some of the data and repeats itself in these things. I mean, a lot of this stuff does. Here we go. Actual EGR position, 0. EGR pintle position, 0. So we know we have some big time EGR position 0, desired EGR position 0.04. So there you see, they do not match. Actually, I'd go desired EGR position voltage 0.04, desired EGR pintle position voltage 0. Okay, so we found something that doesn't match there. Desired and actual does not match. So this thing probably needs an EGR valve, or it's not plugged in, or something like that. So that would be time for our visual inspection. Okay, let's see. So a lot of this stuff kind of repeats itself if you click on it. The actual data, it just breaks it down to a little bit. Engine data is usually groups everything together. Some of the stuff has specialty data PIDs, but otherwise, like fuel trim data, it's going to show us the O2 sensors again and our fuel trims. So it just groups it together and cuts out some of the other stuff. Okay, so that's okay for engine. Now we're going to go to this box here that says functional tests. Okay, so this is if there's any special functions that we can perform with the scanner. CKP variation learn. Keep doing that. CKP variation learn. That's crankshaft position sensor variation learn. Injector balance. This is kind of a cool test. Ensure all fuel lines are connected. Connect the fuel pressure gauge to the fuel line. Turn the ignition on, engine off. And basically what this does, with your fuel, if you want to diagnose a bad injector, you have your fuel pressure gauge hooked up. Say it reads 60 psi. Key on, engine off. Now with this function, you can go into the scanner and pulse each individual injector, and you should watch the fuel pressure drop from 60 down to like 50 as it pulses. Then you go to the next cylinder. It energizes the fuel pump back up to 60, shuts it off. You want to see it pulse. So that's kind of a cool test. Output controls. Okay, so now you can see these are all the bi-directional controls you can do. And so injector 1 disable. If we'd be listening to this engine run, I'd hit injector 1 disable. You'd hear a misfire form. You can see all the different functions here. IAC control here, that stands for idle air control. You can actually command the idle up and down and see if the IAC valve, idle air control valve, is doing what it's supposed to do. Fuel pump relay on and off to diagnose, to diagnose fuel pumps. And you can see canister purge, that's for the the evap system. So different vehicles have different functional tests. This one doesn't have a ton, some have more than this. I'm gonna go back. Okay, and troubleshooter is kind of cool on the Snap-on feature. You can click on troubleshooter, engine. Okay, you can go to code tips or symptom tips. So let's see, we'll go to symptom tips just to kind of play around here. Driving, starting, we'll go to driving problems. Lack of power, no DTC. So it just says text in this field report finding that the crank sensor reluctor or loose on the crankshaft. Remove the crank sensor and use a screwdriver through the hole to check for any looseness. It may be necessary to remove the starter to access crank sensor. If the reluctor is loose, then replace the crankshaft. Then the crankshaft replacement may be necessary. So just little tips like that. Tests and procedures. You can go to test the part, which is kind of helpful here. And let's say we are going to do our map sensor test. And it gives you an explanation. You can use a hand pump and check the reading, and you can verify that the map sensor is working. So anyways, you can go down the list, but this one doesn't offer a ton. Some offer a lot more. Okay, let's back out of here and go to actually we're going to keep going back. So that was the troubleshooter. Okay, so we're going to go back out of the engine here, and we're going to go check out the transmission. Let's check for any codes in the transmission. No codes in the transmission. All powertrain codes. Yep, we have our EGR there. Okay, so let's check out our, back here, data display. Transmission data, shift data, trans adapt data. A transmission adapt is basically the transmission timing every single shift and adjusting pressures accordingly to give it a comfortable shift, basically. Okay, so we can see our engine RPM here. TPS, that's throttle position sensor. We're 0 because we're idle. Transmission input, ISS, input shaft sensor. So our input shaft is spinning right now. If we would put the transmission in drive, you'd see that go to 0 because then the input shaft actually stops. So that's following engine RPM, just like what we want to see. Trans fluid temp, that's an important one right there. So 116, 118. TCC slip, we watch this a lot. When you're in lockup, torque converter clutch lockup, that's real important to watch that slip. We don't want any more than 100 RPM slip. Okay, go to this side here. Transmission output shaft speed sensor, it's at 0 because we're not moving. Okay, TCC brake switch is open. If you step on the brake, it should read closed. And you could see our tow haul mode is inactive on the button. If we push the button on the shifter, that should read that it turns active. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the transmission. You can go to functional tests here. Okay, you can command the solenoids on the 1, 2, the 2, 3. You can command the EPC or pressure control and solenoid amps for testing of that. While you have a gauge hooked up, you can actually command the solenoid to a different amount. It's called a PWM, pressure width modulated solenoid. So you can command the amount of amperage it sends to it, and it should change your pressures. TCC, torque converter clutch control solenoid on and off. And then finally, to clear the transmission adapts. So if you did a transmission replacement or repair, it's a good idea to clear the adapts so that you don't give those bad habits to the new transmission. Okay, so we're going to back right out of transmission here. And again, ABS, airbag, let's see, transfer case. So anti-lock brakes, here's one we can look at, and let's check for codes. No codes. History. Wow, there's a lot of codes in history. Look at that. Okay. So we got some stuff going on here. Okay, so if we go to data display, here's where it's really nice to graph it. And don't ask me why they say miles per hour 3 when the truck's not moving. That's just what it does. I don't understand. But it's really nice here to graph these speed sensors and go drive the vehicle. One real common thing is, especially then on GM vehicles, you come to a stop, and right before you come to a stop, the ABS kind of cycles, and it gives you that ABS feeling where it has that kind of that rum, rum, that grinding feel in the pedal, and it cycles the pump. And if you watch real carefully while you graph these speed sensors, a lot of time you'll see one of the front ones actually dropping out before it gets to 3, which is actually a 0. So it could be 10, 9, 8, 7, and it might drop out. Whereas the other one keeps reading. That's what gives us our false ABS cycle. So it's really helpful to have a scanner to be able to graph that stuff. Okay, so anyway, automated bleed, that's something you can use to help bleed brakes after a brake line repair. If you want to enter different tire size, you can do that here. Back up. Okay, quick look at body control module. You can see if you go to functional test, you can command some of the different things here, which is cool. The horn on and off. You can command the door locks. So it's really helpful for diagnosing. Program key fobs, that's really helpful. That's a pretty cool function. Okay, so there you guys have it. Pretty much pretty straightforward here. All the different functions of the scanner. And again, to get back to our home screen, I'm going to go to the home icon here. That brings us back here. Now if I want to exit the vehicle I'm in, I'm going to hit this little car-shaped icon right here. Okay, now it says no active vehicle right here. So then we can either go into the scanner to pick a different vehicle, or we can go down here to vehicle history to select, and there's our 2000 Silverado that we were just looking at, to select another vehicle. Alright, so that's a quick look at the Snap-on scanner and how to use that. Next we'll check out the launch. Okay, so we're going to check out this launch scanner now, and it's a little bit different than the Snap-on, but it works pretty good. Okay, so you hit the icon there and it brings you up to the home screen, and we're going to go ahead and hit Chevrolet. We have the same vehicle that we'll be working on that we did with the Snap-on. So confirm, it asks you to pick the version. Sometimes it gives you different options, I'm not really sure why. If it does, you always click the latest version. Now it's going to try to connect to the vehicle. Okay, so there we go. Now we have here automatically search, manually select. We're going to go ahead and automatically search. Is the VIN correct? Yep. Okay, it asks you to select what kind of transmission it has. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit automatic. And yes to confirm. Okay, health report, I think that's like a full DTC scan. I always hit system scan or system selection. System scan just basically goes through and tells you all the modules you can get into. System selection, we're going to hit that. Okay, and it gives you a list of the different modules. On this one you can, let's see, okay, we can just scroll up and down like this. And some of these modules are not going to be present, like this truck does not have OnStar, but the biggest things we're going to go into is this was a 6-liter V8, so this is the one, a powertrain module, we're going to go into it here. Okay, so here we go. DTCs, again, we'll click on that, DTC information, freeze frame, we're going to go click on it to read codes, read trouble codes. And we have our EGR code just like before. So we are going to go ahead and hit back right down the bottom left hand corner here. Back again. Okay, so now we are going to go into, we're going to hit back one more time. So now we're going to go into data display. And you can see, okay, so there's engine data, transmission, ATC is automatic transfer case. So let's go back to our engine data. We're going to go to, we'll just go to engine data 1. Okay, so now this one's different because you can actually select the different things you want to watch. So let's grab a few here to select it. Let's watch our O2 sensors again. So we can just click there. Okay, and then we're going to go to bottom right hand corner here, confirm. Okay, there it shows us all the O2 sensor values. So we're going to hit graph right down here. And now it starts graphing all 4 sensors at once. And you can see it's a little bit slower. Some vehicles are faster on the launch, other vehicles are slower on the launch. And the least amount of data PIDs you select to graph, the faster it actually is. So you can see you can select different ones to individually zoom in on just by touching them. Okay, we're going to back up again. Okay, and you can see there's a lot of different data PIDs we can check. The only difference here is you actually have to select them and hit confirm, whereas the Snap-on, it just shows you all the data PIDs as you scan through them, as you kind of scroll through them. Okay, but you can see engine data 1, engine data 2. So a little bit more data for us to see here. Again, different vehicles are going to be different. Okay. We have, again, our misfire data, fuel trim data. We're going to check misfire. Oops. Now for this one, you actually have to select each cylinder and then hit confirm. So it works the same way, potentially. It works the same way for the most part, but you just have to select everything you want to see. So we're going to go back again. Okay, we're going to go back one more time. Okay, so let's go into special functions here. Okay, here we go. We can pick all these different things here. Automatic transfer case output controls service bay test. So click on that once. And there's our evap test. We can run a self evap test in this vehicle. Make it do a self test, and it's either going to pass or fail. All right, so we have our engine output controls on top here. Click on that. Our AC relay, fuel pumps. You can manually turn all these things on and off, which is pretty cool. Transmission. We can actually, this one allows us to shift the transmission. As you drive it, you can shift the transmission using the scanner. That's a really cool trick. So you can see it's pretty similar, but there are a few differences to the Snap-on. And if you back up, here we're going to hit health report. And you can see it just scans all the different modules, basically just doing a quick scan of all the different modules, letting you know if there's DTCs or not. And you can see some of them, it says not equipped. Heating and air conditioning not equipped because it's got a manual, there's no heating and air conditioning module. It's got manual controls on this one. Okay, yep. So some of this, a lot of this stuff is not equipped. This is more of a, it's a 2500, so it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. You know, it's more of a work truck. Okay, so anyway, we're gonna back up here. So that's the launch in a nutshell. And one thing, if on this one, when you go to exit out, this is really quick. Yes. It gives you that really annoying alarm, so you don't forget that little small Bluetooth module in the OBD2 port, which is really easy to do. So that helps prevent that a little bit. So that's it. There you go.